Welcome to the Next Homie Focus Group. I'm Chuck Vosburgh, and this is my wife, Pat. We're your friends in Florida, and we're with Next Home Gulf to Bay. So, welcome everybody. I'm not going to waste any time because we've got a really great class today. We've got Geoff Talbot today, and Pat and I have known Geoff for a little while now. In fact, we're in his program, and he agreed. He was nice enough to come in here, and he's going to teach us a class today. And it's going to be really great. His presentation is about how to 3x your business using your sphere of influence. I know that what we've learned from Geoff has really seriously changed our business and to some extent our lives as well. So listen up, enjoy, and I'm going to turn it over to Geoff right now. Geoff, welcome.
Hey, thank you so much, Chuck. I'm very excited to be with you guys today. I am calling in from New Zealand, so I am definitely the furthest person away from you all today. Hey, could you guys let me know in the chat box whereabouts you are in the world? Could you just type into the chat where you are in the world? Would love to know. Hey, Pamela, great to have you on here. I see Courtney and Selma, Debbie, wow, Seal Beach. Wow, Idaho, West Michigan, Michigan, Southern California, Florida, Jersey Shore, Idaho, Paris, Texas. Wow. Hey, can you guys all understand my accent? Is it very clear? Um, is it okay? Not too confusing? Very good. The workbook is further up in the chat. If someone could drop it back in, that would be amazing. We're going to jump in and we're going to look um, at a few very important things today. So, one of the things I wanted to start off with, though, is to share a story. So if I just jump in here and put it in my workbook here, it's not in yours. Um, but you can see here, these are my children right here. This is Rose on the left. She is 7, and this is Gabriel on the right. He's 12. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Gabriel today. Now, if anyone here has ever had a 12-year-old, but at about 12, children start to get quite they're figuring out who they are and they're making their own decisions, and it can be challenging as a parent sometimes. And one of the things I had noticed recently about Gabriel was that I was falling into a role and playing a role of just being his dad and correcting him a lot, and it wasn't doing so well for our relationship. And so the other morning I said, Gabriel, could I talk to you for a bit? And I sat down on the bed next to him, and he thought he was in trouble. And I said, look, lately I've been correcting you a lot, and I know that I'm your dad, but I also want something else. I want to be your friend. And actually, I'd kind of like to be one of your best friends. And he lit up with this big smile on his face, and he gave me a big hug. And since then, our relationship has been so much better. And the reason I bring this up is sometimes we get caught up in roles, and there's lots of different roles that we play in our life. And the segmenting of our lives can get very, very busy, and it can get very, very troublesome. And so, as we go through the session today, the first thing I want to look at in a second is our energy divider, because I think when we start to play lots of roles and forget that everything in life is about relationships, things get exhausting and they get very difficult. Does that make sense? Does it make sense when we play roles, things get difficult? Maybe it doesn't, maybe it does, but we're going to get into it in a second. So you'll see here, right here, if I pinch this in here and move myself around a bit so I'm not in the way here. Um, our promise today is to take you through a model that will show you how you can get 3 times more business through relationship. Where we're building relationships and not breaking relationships, where there's less hustle and more flow, when it's empowering and really easy. And so the first thing I'd like to know is we think 2024 is the year of the sphere. And so let's talk about how much of your business came from your sphere last year. Let's talk about how much of your business came from your sphere last year. And when we talk about sphere, let's talk about relationship. So, how much of your business was word of mouth last year from other realtors, from past clients, from referrals within your community? Clients that weren't purchased, if you like. How many transactions came from your sphere last year? Pop that into the chat box. 100%. What's 100%? How many? What's 95%? Is that 12, 14? Um, you can't sort of do 3 times 100%, but you can do 3 times 15. So let's put it in an actual tangible number. 10, 2 from 2, great. 15 from 32, great. And so whatever your number is, over half, 12, 24. So perhaps you put 24 in here, 24 in here. And so let's have a look, 10, 4, yep. First thing I just want us to think about is what's 3 times that number? What's 3 times that number? So if it's 24, we're going to put, if my maths are right, 72 here. If you could go to 72 transactions from your sphere, what kind of difference would that make? If you could go from 10 to 30, what kind of difference would that make? Now, if you have a number less than 6, let's just put 15 here. If your number is less than 6, let's say we want to make sure that everybody gets at least 15 transactions from their sphere next year. Does that make sense? Now, what kind of a difference, put it in this box here, what kind of difference would that make to you? If Corey, you could do 30 transactions from your sphere. If Courtney, you could do 3 times 23, 46, 69 transactions from your sphere. What kind of difference would that make to you in your life? What would you not have to do anymore? And what would you get to do? That's what that's changes in life. It's when we can stop certain things that we don't like, and when we can do things that we do really, really like to provide some freedom. Yeah, right. And so that's the model we're going to take you through. Now, it takes time, it takes hard work to do it, but everything in life is hard work. You'd save money on leads. Yeah, lots of stuff like that. And so what we're talking about today is very, very important. By the way, if you wish to book a sphere design session with me, I will take you through it personally. And so I'm just going to give you this up front, so you have it here. If you want to book a session totally for free, because I love working with Pat and Chuck, they're amazing people to me, then you can book a session for free with us and we'll take you through our model individually. So I've just given you that there. As we dive in here, I want you to think about all the different roles that you play in your life. And we're going to put them into this wheel up here. So for me, I'll put in dad. What are some of the roles you play in? I'll put business owner. You can put sales, like all the different roles that you play in your life. Maybe like Pat and Chuck would put lead group. What are all the different roles? Put them all in here. I'm a husband. What are the different roles you play? I coach a sports team. What are some of the roles that you guys play? Let's just get a clear sense of the different roles that you play. If someone wants to add a few to the chat, that would be awesome. Add a few to the chat. Instructor, grandma and church member. Yeah, right. Mentor. Yeah. Oh, let's check mentor in here. Let's check church in here. Great. NBA basketball official, NCAA. So that's awesome. Pardon me. Teenage mum, dog owner, wife, business owner, friend. Yeah, that's great, Chuck. There's lots of different roles. And throughout the day, what happens is we have to switch roles. And so if you think about it like this, we start the day in the morning with so much energy. Maybe we're charged up, ready to go, and we're focused on getting ourselves ready. And then there's a transition and we have to be with the kids. There's a new role here. And then we go to work. And so we're being a realtor here. And what happens is every time we change roles, there's like an energy. If we're playing roles, if we're just playing roles, if we're putting on a new, this is what I'm doing now, this is what I'm doing now. Now I'm going to coach somebody in real estate. What happens is we slowly depreciate energy throughout the day and we get very tired. The method that I'm going to talk about with you today doesn't do that because it says everything is about relationships. Do you know that the challenges you have with your kids could be great for your real estate business? Do you know that you being in church could be great for your real estate business? Do you know that being in your real estate business could be great for your life in your church? Everything is connected. And when we think about a more connected life, what happens is our energy can actually increase throughout the day because everything feeds off. I said, I'm not going to play a role with Gabriel. I'm not just going to be his dad. I'm going to build a relationship with him. Things got easier and they were life giving and energy giving. But when I had to play the role and wave my finger and make sure I corrected him all the time, we both lost energy. Does that make sense? And this is a big part of our model here. And I am going to move pretty quick. So I apologize. But you can see here we have an iceberg and it's called a life iceberg. Does everyone have that in their workbook? Can you give me a wave in the Zoom chat? Have you got that in the workbook? Great. And so with an iceberg, 10% is above the water and 90% is below. And I was thinking about this in terms of Next Home because I love your brand. I love humans over houses. And one of the things we think about with an iceberg is we imagine that the wind blows the iceberg, the wind blows it, but actually it's the current under the water that dictates the direction of an iceberg. And when you think about your real estate business and your life in general, it's what's under the water that truly causes the direction of your business to flourish. And so, again, sometimes we focus on what we can see. So we focus on leads, we focus on social media attention, we focus on dollars, we focus on clients, we focus on all the things we can see that are very present. Excuse my messy writing. But what I love about Next Home, and I was thinking about this is the water line, is Next Home says homes or houses up here, and it says humans under here. And that's what we say too. We say the direction of your life is dictated to by what's under the surface. So the relationships that you build. And we could have a very successful real estate career, but if we're not surrounded by people we genuinely love, who genuinely get us, who give us energy, then our life will be not as fulfilling as we would like, and our business won't be as enjoyable as we like. And so the first thing we will say that we want you to have is we want you to have catalytic connections. In chemistry, a catalyst is required for two substances to react. If the catalyst isn't present, the substances either won't react or they'll react and be very weak. But when the catalyst is present, there's a powerful reaction. And so as we think about your business, if you're surrounded by people who aren't catalytic, if in your life you have people who don't give you energy, if you're surrounded by people who mope, if you're surrounded by people who criticize, just aren't a good fit for you, then what will happen is your business will always be hard and you'll always be getting just a few referrals and you're getting a few people in your community talking about you. And so we want not for you to have a large list, but our goal is when you have catalytic connections, you become deeply well known. Deeply well known. When you're deeply well known, your business can absolutely thrive. Deeply well known in your community, deeply well known by your sphere of influence. Quick question. Stop what you're doing. Quick question. If I chose 15 people from your email list and asked them how well they knew you, would they be one, I think they're a realtor, but I don't know much else? Two, I bet that I really like their values, or three, I have a clear idea as to who they are as a human being. because we want it to be that 3. We want to push and push so that people know us more and more and more. Because if we're not deeply well known, it's more difficult. 2 to 3. Good. I'm loving those answers. That's awesome. And every communication, every conversation is a chance for people to get to know us. And that's the next thing we want in life. We don't just want to be surrounded by great people. We want to be having what we call compelling, excuse my messy writing, but compelling conversations. And sometimes we talk in real estate a lot about nurturing. I like the idea of compelling conversations more. Nurturing often aims to have us top of mind. If I were to ask you right now, what are 3 things that you have thought about so far today? Give me 3 things you've thought about so far today. You'll be racking your brain. Pamela will be saying, well, I don't know, Geoff, I've thought about a lot of things, right? But if I ask you, who are the 3 most important people to you in your life right now? Put in the chat box, who are the 3 most important people in the chat box to you right now? 3 most important people in your life. Kids and Joe, done. Quick, right? Who else? Who else has got the 3 most important people? Pat, Karen, Chris. Sick daughter, hubby, healthy son, right? You don't have to think about it because this is where you want to be. You want, in your sphere of influence, you don't want to be top of mind. You want to be center of heart. Center of heart. The reason you want to be center of heart is it's not very competitive. When you aim for top of mind, you go into a battlefield with thousands of other realtors, an exaggeration, a large number of other realtors, and you're battling to be the one that reminded them that you're a realtor last. And you miss out all the time because so and so happened to send them an email at the right time, and you missed out. But when you're center of heart, there is so little competition. Like no one can dislodge Anita's mum from being center of heart. It's impossible. And we want you to be center of heart in the lives of many, many people in your community. And you get there by having what we call compelling conversations. And we'll talk about that soon. The other thing that we think people want in their life, is they want committed collaborators, not referral partners who just send you referral business, but people who are genuinely committed to see you succeed. And again, over here, often what we just aim for is asking for the referral. If I go out to the kitchen right now when my wife wakes up and I say to her, love, I need you to love me. I need you to be kind to me. I need you to do all these things for me. There's a chance that that is indicative that there is a problem with the relationship, right? It would be weird for me to have to give her a list of nice things she could say and do to me. That would show something's up with the relationship. And it's the same here. If you're having to ask for the referral all the time, the relationship is not strong enough. Instead, we want to build relationships where people are inspired to help. We want people to be absolutely inspired to help you, and you're inspired to help them. And we think a great life exists when you, and a great business exists when you are deeply well known, when you're the center of many people in your community's hearts. Like when it comes to real estate, obviously they have their own special people too, but you're the realtor that gets them, and they're absolutely inspired to help you. Basically, we want to be surrounded by great people. We want to be having incredibly meaningful interactions with others. And we want to do work with people and feel supported in our work. Does that make sense? Does anyone disagree with that? You're welcome to disagree with it. It's fine if you want to. Just give me a wave if you agree. I've got you all in. Yep, great, awesome. So that's what we've built our model on. And the whole idea here is that we want to see that good people who genuinely care, excuse my writing, I'm working too fast, genuinely care for others, we think that you deserve what we call maximum success. We think you deserve to be the one that everybody thinks about. We think you're the one that deserves the passive business, right? And so this is where we come to this model here, which is where we're going to spend a bit of time here. So what does it take for you to build that kind of presence, a powerful presence where you're center of heart, deeply well known, and people are inspired to help you? Well, the first thing we know to be true, and I'm going to turn my iPad a little bit here and zoom in, is the first thing is you've got to expand. And that expansion is both inside of you, like you might have to really truly believe that you can do this. You might want to bring your full self into all of your relationships, right? But that expansion also is interpersonal. Some of us just need to get connected to more people in our community. It's like a practical problem. The next thing we know that you're going to have to do is we know you're going to have to engage. And that engagement needs to be both wider and it also needs to be deeper. We need to figure out how can we engage more deeply with people in our community. And the last thing, if you want to have a really powerful presence, is we need to excite people more. And that excitement needs to happen both online and offline. Sometimes a client will come to me and they'll say, I'm going to get rid of this friend. They didn't refer me. They referred Corey instead of me, and they're all upset, right? They're throwing their knickers down on the ground. They're like, there's something wrong with this person. I always think, well, actually, that's our problem. For whatever reason, we didn't manage to make it important or a compelling enough case for that person to refer us. We didn't build the kind of relationship that gave them all the information they needed to know. I must refer Kim. I must refer Aaron. I got to refer Debbie. I got to refer Desiree. And so all these things are important when you think about it. If you expand, if you engage more deeply and more widely, and if you're able to excite people in your community, both online and offline, you will most certainly have a more powerful presence. But if you don't expand, and if you don't engage, and if you don't get people excited, you will stay exactly where you are. And this is where we put these things that we discussed in the last model here. This is where we want you to be connected to more catalytic connections. Too often in real estate, we talk about contacts. Contacts are boring. Connections are meaningful. And so that's very important. And when you think about it, sometimes one of the things we do is we work the wrong way round. And we think, if only I can change myself and get my shit sorted out, pardon me, then I'll have more, then I'll be able to appeal to more people, but I got to work hard on myself. And maybe that is the case sometimes. But when you think about it, if you get connected and focus and choose to spend time with people who give you energy, who challenge you, who help you feel great, who push you, who inspire you, you naturally expand. And so the choice is here, I must choose to focus more of my time and energy on engaging with people who are catalytic for me. And then if you're surrounded by more catalytic people, you get excited, which is why all of you who went to the Next Time conference in Las Vegas came back excited because you were surrounded by catalytic people. Well, you've got to do that in your everyday life too. You've got to do that in your community. You've got to find those people. Otherwise, you rely on conference boosts, which don't happen as often as you need them. Here, we want to make sure that you are having compelling conversations every single day. And often we fall into traps with conversations and with nurture. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But when we're having compelling conversations with people, we expand, we feel great, and we're engaging, and we want to engage more. But if our nurturing techniques involve us using the words, hey, Desiree, I'm just checking in, then what happens is it's not very interesting, and um, and we don't keep doing it. But when we're having amazing conversations with people, like I had one with Corey a while back, it was very exciting, right? Then we want to keep having those conversations. And so it's very important that we focus our attention on having amazing conversations with people. And then here, we want to make sure, this is where we put this part of the model here, we want to make sure that you are surrounded by committed collaborators. Committed collaborators. This is vital. If we're not forming the kinds of partnerships where people will do anything they can to help us, then we also struggle to engage and we don't get excited. We feel like it's all up to us. In our world, let me give you some basic metrics. To really, really thrive, you only need 100 catalytic connections. You don't need a big email list. You just need 100. One of my dear friends, Jennifer Preddy, told me that the best decision she ever made for her business was she tore up her email list and she said, from now on, I'm just going to talk to 150 people who I love, who are good for my business. She does $100 million worth of production as a solo agent in Boulder, Colorado now, because she decided these are the people that I'm for. And these are the people that give me life, give me energy, that are great for my business. So we know that that's about there. In terms of compelling conversations, you need to have about 50 a week. 50 compelling conversations a week. We'll discuss exactly what a compelling conversation is in a second, in a little bit. And then over here, when it comes to committed collaborators, you need to have about 20. And these committed collaborators, they'll give you 1 to 2 deals a year each. And it's set up right. And everything we do is about finding these people. So we're looking for our catalytic connections and we're looking for our collaborators. That's why we talk to people. We're building up a huge and powerful set of relationships. Does that make sense? Can you give me a wave if it makes sense? I'd like to poll you and give you a bit of control in the session. So which of these would you like to talk about first? Which is most important to you? Committed collaborators who give you 1 to 2 deals a year, having compelling conversations, 50 a week, or catalytic connections. Just pop it into the chat box and we'll start with whichever one you want to talk about. Pop it in the chat. Compelling conversations. 1, compelling conversations. Committed collaborators, compelling, compelling, compelling. Okay. It looks like the compelling conversation people have got in first. So you'll be able to scroll down here to this sheet here in your workbook. And if we think about this here, the question is, how can I grow simply by talking with people? That's the question. And so I want you to think about your last 7 days. Your last 7 days, Courtney. Your last 7 days, Debbie. Your last 7 days, Joanne, Krista, Patricia. Last 7 days. How have you been going with your conversations with people? Have you really not talked to very many people? If that's the case, then you're red. You're the silent one right here. If you have been in the process of mostly just checking in with people, you're amber. If you've been aiming to be top of mind, then you are light green. But if you have really been having like 50 plus conversations and you've been amazing to have, and you've been trying to be center of heart with people, and you've been really going deep with people, then you're in your dark green. Where are you? What kinds of conversations have you been having? How have you been talking with people? Pop it in the chat. Where have you been? Top of mind, very common place to go. In fact, it's kind of what's taught. Where else have you been? Top of mind. The silent one, just checking in, top of mind. Talking to some of my referral agents, top of mind, just checking in. Yeah. The majority of people in real estate sit here. And it really doesn't matter where you've been. What matters is where you're going. And so we want to change that today. We want to change it. And so there are three parts to the process here when it comes to compelling conversations. The first thing is that you are responsible for starting conversations. You're responsible for starting them. If you don't start them, they won't happen. So you're responsible for starting them. There's one other point I'm going to make. We can't dive in too deep today because I could teach for literally a year on this. You are responsible for starting them. Uh, Context is critical. Context is critical. And I'll talk a bit about that in a second. Context is critical. So some of you have been realtors for a very long time. Pop in the chat box how long you've been in real estate for. Pop in the chat. 7 years, Liz. 25 years, Debbie. 3 years, Joanne. Oh, whew, 23, 11. 1, Kim. The chat's moving very fast. 15, Desiree. Chuck, 9. Pat, 100. Okay, Chuck, you're definitely on the couch tonight. Mark, 8. Barbara, 12. Samantha, 20. Jeremiah, 1. So those people who haven't just been a realtor for 1, 2, or maybe 3 years, those people who have been in real estate for a long time, how many of you have relationships or part with past clients or people you work with that you didn't maintain a relationship with and you feel a little bad? You feel a little bad, like my nurture should have been better. You just put me into the chat box. It's very common. Me, Liz, me, 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 me. Yeah. And it's a cycle that people get into. It's almost like a shame cycle, probably is, where because we've been bad at nurturing, we will keep being bad at nurturing because it's like, I feel bad for not keeping in touch, so I will no longer keep in touch. Here's the thing. The people you've not kept in touch with have not been thinking about you at all. In fact, they've gone on with their merry life and um, their standards for you keeping in touch with them are not being very high. They're not as high as your standards. What we've found is with the right framework and the right approach, re-engaging those people is very powerful because people do not like to be forgotten, but they love to be remembered even more. They love to be remembered even more. So by reconnecting with people, you can absolutely make their day. And I would challenge you to reach out to those people. We have specific frameworks that we teach, but even if it's very clumsy, it's better than not at all. But when you reach out and say, hey, it's been ages, acknowledge the time. I wanted, I was wondering if you still don't talk about their house because it'll feel like you're prospecting for business. But I seem to remember your kids were going to such and such a school. How was that? By acknowledging that time and remembering them, they'll be very touched. We had Stacy in Arizona reach out to 8 people she hadn't talked to in 5 years. And she got 2 listings from it just by being a great human being. She's a next homie too, actually, and reaching out to them. We had Helen reach out to someone she hadn't spoken to in 25 years. And she was so excited to reinvigorate that old relationship. And so time is actually an asset, and you've got to stop thinking about it as I've done a bad job. And so context is critical. If time has gone by, you want to acknowledge that time. If it's a new Facebook friend, the way you start a conversation is different. But let's talk about what makes a compelling conversation. And let's talk about diving deep. Diving deep really just involves you trying to do one thing. What I want you to do, well, 2 things actually. I want you to learn something new about the other person, and I want you to share something new about yourself. A conversation is not compelling if you just share real estate information. Let me repeat that. A conversation is not compelling when you just share real estate information. A relationship is built when you share relationship-based information. And it's very important, in fact, more important than you realize when you're building relationships, that you make the relationship about both of you from the start. We have people who have a tendency to make it all about business. And then we have people who have a tendency to make it all about service. So I'm going to serve you. I'm going to ask you all the questions. I'm going to give to you. I'm going to be so generous to you. I'm going to make you the center of my world. You're going to feel so special. This is a service orientated realtor. And then at the very end of the relationship or the end of the conversation, I'm going to say in an extremely awkward voice, and by the way, if you know of anyone who needs a realtor, would you refer me? And it feels awkward because it is awkward. And the problem is you made it all about the other person and not about you from the start. And you have to make it about both of you. You have to make it about the relationship. And that's the key. That's the key to a compelling conversation. And if all you do every time you speak with someone, every time you engage with someone, personal life, business life, community life, church life, it doesn't matter where. If all you do is every conversation, learn something new, share something new, your business is going to grow. And if you only take that away from this call, that will be valuable for you. I had a baker, a Vietnamese baker who lived not far from where I was living in New Zealand. And I was going to the bakery a little more than I should have. Please don't tell my wife. And every time I was buying stuff that I shouldn't, again, please don't tell my wife. But my baker, his name was DK, he had very little English. Every time I went in, I just shared one thing new and I learned one thing new. It was clumsy because I didn't speak good Vietnamese and he didn't speak very good English. When we went to move and I told him we were moving, he was quite emotional, but he said, Geoff, could I send all my workers to help you load up the truck? Totally inspired to help, didn't ask, simply by building conversations. And so we want to make sure that we are learning something new. The other part of a compelling conversation is you must choose the goal. You must choose the goal of the conversation. What we tend to do is we fall into the pattern of, hey, let me just be real friendly and see what happens. Well, it's better than not being friendly. But what does happen in that case, when we just don't have a goal, is the conversations go on and on and on, and we never get what we want. And part of being human is saying, I think this conversation is for this. And so if I'm talking to a new Facebook friend, I'm not trying to sell them into our program or convince them of any great fact. I'm just sharing one thing and learning one thing. And then the conversation's finished because I'm going to have lots and lots and lots of conversations with people. So when we're building relationships, we want to choose the goal. Are we finding someone and the conversation is going so great? We're like, that's a catalytic connection for me. I'm going to really build this relationship. Or do we find someone we're like, oh, that person is an incredible collaborator for me? Or do we have a more tangible goal? Jay here, who made 165K in real estate business from Facebook Messenger alone in about a 12-month period. He started 28 conversations with small business owners with a single goal of inviting them to an event on Saturday. 12 of them said yes, they could come. That was his goal. He knew when it was done. And so being very clear as to what the goal is very important. Does that make sense? I wonder what the most interesting thing is you've learned so far today is. If you could pop that in the chat box, that would be fantastic. We've got about 15 more minutes. What's the most interesting thing? Pop it in the chat box. That's great. Chuck gained a collaborator from it. What's the most interesting thing I've shared so far? Not being top of mind, but being center of heart. Yeah, and that happens through conversations. It happens through sharing. It happens through listening. Don't be afraid to reach back to your sphere of influence. Great. Sharing more, diving deep. Forgiving myself from the guilt of not staying in touch with the past. Yeah, amazing. You're responsible for starting the conversations. Learn things I had no idea about. Love that, Pamela. Becoming center of heart. starting the conversation. If all you did was have 50 compelling conversations a week, that would be amazing. There's probably going to be a change that you're thinking you want to make. I'd love you to put that in this box right here. This box right here. Just put, I'm going to be more consistent with my conversations, whatever it is. Pop that in the chat box there. All right. I reckon the next part we're going to talk about is committed collaborators. And let's talk about what that looks like. Remember, the goal here is to have for you to have 20 committed collaborators. What's a committed collaborator? So the differentiation between a referral partner and a collaborator is pretty big. A referral partner could be an elderly couple that you work with who go on a cruise ship 6 months of the year, who really don't want or need a lot in their life. Like they're not really in motion. A collaborator is typically someone who you can help also. So they are trying to succeed at something. They might be trying to build a business, grow a Facebook group, collect volunteers for an organization, but they're a person in motion who wants something, who's driven for something. And that's the big difference. And so when you're talking with people and you identify someone who's really wanting to go after something, you should pay attention. And the question here is, how do I get people to help me without me even having to ask? And you're going to be in one of these states right now. You're going to say, look, I feel like my back's against the wall. That's red. Or you're going to say, I feel like everything is up to me. And you might even say that to yourself. You might be saying, I got to make it happen. I got to do this. It's up to me. I can't expect help from anybody else. Or you might be here in the green where you go, I've got to ask. If I don't ask, I don't get. Or you might be here where you have people helping you and you're not even having to ask because you've inspired them so much with how you treat them, how you engage them, how you share your dream. Where are you in that paradigm today? Chuck, Pat, Tina, Heath, Amanda, Desiree, Kim, Aaron, Debbie, Anita, Michelle, where are you? Chuck, that's 8. That's amazing. That's way better than it would have been. John, Courtney, Sharon, Patricia, Krista, where are you? Inspired to help. Love that. That's amazing. You must be sharing your story somewhat with people. You must be, you must be connecting deeply with people. 7 or 8. 8. Yeah. We want to stay here. We want to get here. Now, I'm going to share very quickly here. The first step in creating a collaborator. So perhaps, Kim, you've had a conversation and you're like, this person is trying to do something. I'm trying to do something. This is amazing. Like they were a good fit. This could be a collaborator. The first thing you want to do is when you set up the next step is you want to use these words. And I'm just going to use the last 3 of them. You want to be saying, help each other. So it could look like this. Hey, Kim, why don't we jump on a Zoom and figure out how we can help each other? Aaron, why don't we go out for coffee, figure out how we can help each other? Michelle, it'd be awesome to figure out how we can help each other. I want to jump on the phone. It's very important that you're saying help each other because what we tend to do is we say, Desiree, I'd love to grab a coffee, buy you a coffee and figure out how I can help you. And then we get together and I make it all about you and I don't get anything. We want to center the relationship. Let's figure out how we can help each other. Let's ask for partnership. It's very important. Um, Amazing. Now, the next thing you want to do with partners is you need to have multiple asks. We teach what we call a favor funnel. And if you think about it, if you were to ask me, Chuck, if Chuck was to ask me, Geoff, could you refer us somebody? We need business. Could you refer us someone in Florida? I'd be like, sure, Chuck, but I don't know anyone right now. And then about 2 months later, he says, Geoff, and by the way, if you know of anyone who needs to buy or sell, could you refer them to me? Yeah, I'd love to help you, Chuck, but I don't know anyone. This could happen 3 times. And in the end, how am I feeling? Guilty, resentful, even? Would he stop asking? I can't help him, right? And so we ask people for the big thing they can't give us. They cannot collaborate with us. Most of the time, they can't do it. And it's frustrating to be asked for something we can't give. But if Chuck were to say, Geoff, would you mind writing me a nice review? You're an excellent writer. Like if he like butted me up a little bit or even just asked, I'd be like, oh, Chuck, that's amazing. Maybe you can write one for me. And I would write him a review. And now I'm collaborating with him. Or, hey, would you mind sharing this Facebook post? Would you mind commenting on this Facebook post? We want to have lots and lots and lots of very small ways in which our partners and us, that's them, pardon me, lots of small ways in which we can help each other because that's where the power is. Once we take small actions on behalf of each other, we will move heaven and earth to take the big action. So be very clear that with partners, you want to get them taking small actions as soon as possible on your behalf. And then lastly, when we think about collaborators, what we want to work very hard at doing, and this is quite a deep concept, I don't have time to get into it, but if this is you here in the middle, here, let me pull this up a bit. Um, what we want to do is, yes, build relationships with our partners here, our collaborators, but we also want to encourage them to build relationships with each other and really build a community out of those collaborators. When you do that, you start to have a very strong structure that doesn't depend on you doing all the work. Like right now, if all of you on this call were to write a review for each other, do you know you could get 44 reviews? Would that not send you up the Google rankings, right? Would that not be helpful? Now, you'd have to make it up a little bit, but for many of you, you could say something nice about the other person. And so the power of community is exponential when you get your partners helping each other. Laura here, she went from about 8 million in Santa Rosa to 25 million simply by building partnerships in her community. Simply by building partnerships in her community. Partners with photographers, partners with artists, partners with teachers, partners with the fire chief, who is her actual partner now. Lots of different partners. And it made a huge difference in her business. So we want to work really hard with that. The last thing we want to do is talk about, okay, one of the things you should be thinking about, well, where do I find all these people to talk to? And where do I find my committed collaborators? And you find them by cultivating a pool of committed collaborators. Sorry, of catalytic connections. So you want to be surrounded by people who are catalytic. I think the first thing to understand is we have to be full of love for people, for our work, for life in general, for the areas in which we sell. Um, if we're not, if we're operating on a half a gas tank, none of this works, right? And so life is brutal. Sometimes real estate can be quite brutal. So we want to make sure that we are in a space where we really love people. And so one of the things that's worth asking right now is how much do you really love people right now? And some of you might say, well, Geoff, I prefer the company of animals if I'm really honest right now. Animals cannot buy houses. It's humans over houses, not animals over houses, right? And so that won't work. And we want to say that it's impossible to live a truly profound life if you don't love people. I wish it weren't so, but it is. And so part of your work together is to make sure that each other stay in a space that is full of love for humanity. It's a rough, tough, very broken world, and it's easy to lose the love for all of us. I had a realtor say to me once, she has been honest. She said, Geoff, I really hate people. And then 2 sentences later, she said, I get so frustrated that no one refers me. And I stopped and I said, do you think those two things could be related? I don't love people and they won't refer me. Have you thought about loving them or trying to love them? Because it could make a big difference. So we want to have an open heart, but we also want to be sure that we give our very best to the most amazing people. And part of this is deciding who are my catalytic connections. This is a very crude drawing, but if you think about it here, these are people who are bad dinner guests. And if you think about this here, these are people who are good dinner guests. And if you think about this here, these are people who are great for business. And then these are people who are not good for your business. What we see is sometimes people have a sphere of influence full of people who would not be invited over for dinner because they would throw the plates or something, or they would be boring, or they would be rude, or they would talk about politics all the time, or one thing all the time. They would control the conversation. This is a bad place to be. If too many of your sphere of influence are here, you won't win. Sometimes, though, people cultivate a sphere of influence for people who are with people who are great for their business, absolutely outstanding for their business, but you would never have them in your house for dinner, right? This is like poison. This will wear you out over time. It will absolutely wear you out. Sometimes people have a sphere of influence here who they are great dinner guests, good to have around, but they're really not good for your business as a rule. And this is more nuanced. This is very simple, a simple explanation. But here you end up paying the bill. What you want to do is have a sphere of influence full of a lot of people who are good for your business and good for dinner. And of course, there's an overlap. Actually, we need some people here. We need some people here. We need some people here just to keep us honest, just to keep us grateful. All right. But choosing exactly who you give your time and attention to is very important. Once you know who, then you want to be able to go out there and find them. And we have a bunch of techniques to help people find more of their people. Carrie did this last year, nearly in a tough year. She did 24 transactions from her sphere. They were all new people, all new people in Atlanta. And so that's the basis of the training today. That's the basis of our model. Couple of things to be aware of. Doesn't matter where you are right now in some ways. There really are four paths, and I want you to think about which one you want to choose. This is a profound life, and our model is designed to keep people on the profound pathway, to keep people focused on building relationships, to give them all the tools that they can. This here, this is good work. This is classified by people who use systems a lot. This line is better because a system will never make you breakfast. It will never, it will never help you in the way a human being will. So relationships trump systems. This is for people who are building their business just based on hard work and muscle. You're going to have a pretty hard life. You're going to waste a lot of time working hard. It's okay, but it's not going to, you're going to spend a lot of years losing relationships. This is a lonely life. It doesn't matter where you are, but if we wait too long, the gap between these lines gets very big. And in some cases, it can be very hard to catch back up. And so my call to you is to choose this line today. And one of the ways I can help you stay on the line, on that green line, is just to simply book a session with me. Part of me being friends with Pat and Chuck, I'd say we're friends now, right? Is to help you guys, because when I help you guys, I help their community, which they're fostering. And so I will do a sphere session with you. There's a bunch of the model that I didn't take you through exactly. There's actually these places here. And when we sit down together in a sphere design session, I will score you and we'll find where you need to grow. And we'll give you a plan on how to grow. And we'll also tell you a bit more about the program that they're in and give you, if we think it's the right fit, we'll give you an invite to join. If it's not, we won't. So I hope that was helpful today. I did move quite fast. You guys were incredible in the chat. I really appreciated you in the chat. My calendar link to book one of those sessions is right there in the Zoom chat, right there. But thank you so much, Kim. Thank you, Courtney, Patricia, John, Michelle, Joanne, Debbie,
If anybody has any questions.
Amanda, Tina, Corey, Mark, Heath.
For me.
Amazing. Yeah, really want to encourage you, just keep building relationships. There you go. Chuck's going to email out that link to you as well. I can only do a few, so get in quick. Amazing. Thanks, Aaron. Thank you. Any questions? I've got I can give 1 minute, one question, then I've got to jump on our actual group call.
Anybody have any questions?
Make sure you unmute yourself if you've got a question
Yeah,
for
unmute
Geoff.
yourself if you have a question. We'd love to hear from you guys. Or if you have any comments either.
People have been saying some very nice stuff in the chat. I appreciate that.
Well, Geoff, we can't thank you enough for coming on today. That was incredibly informative. And also I want to let you know that, Geoff's offering to get with you privately, and it is not a sales call. I can tell you that from personal experience. Pat took him up on that a while back, and he spent some time with us, and we actually walked away with usable information and a plan of action. So we did eventually join Geoff's program, but he's not going to try and sell you.
Everything has to be valuable.
Yes.
In our processes, every interaction has to be valuable. Otherwise, we're not practicing our own method, which doesn't have integrity. Thank you so much. Appreciate you guys. I've got to jump off now. I'll see you again sometime.
See you. All right, and everybody, thank you for coming today. I want to remind you that the Next Homie Focus Group meets every other Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time right here on Zoom, and I hope you can join us. If you're not getting emails from me about the focus group, make sure you put your name and email address in the chat, and I'll make sure that you get added to the list.